everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with some more wrestling news. Tom has already done a lovely news video earlier today on the channel, so check that out for a few different bits and pieces from here and there. But there is more wrestling news, of course, to talk about today. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at all those new headlines. First of all, WWE have addressed the allegations made against Velveteen Dream. Next up, an AEW star has said that a certain title in AEW is meaningless. And finally, we take a look at the very bizarre reason Vince McMahon decided to drop Rusev Day. So first of all, some serious news to start off with, as WWE, in fact more specifically Triple H, has responded to questions about the allegations made against Velveteen Dream. Triple H, or Paul Levesque, as I guess he should be referred to in a more official capacity, was speaking to CBS Sports and was asked, or did address, Velveteen Dream's return to television, which of course sparked a lot of discussion and a lot of criticism online. And in addressing this, Triple H said, and I'll just read it word for word so there's no confusion about what he said, and then everybody can form their own opinion. He said, "In this day-to-day, accusations are made and you take them all very seriously. You look into them the best you can and you find out what is there and what isn't. In this situation, Dream was also involved in a car accident and that is what took him off TV." He goes on to say, "In the moment, all this other stuff happens and you look into it and you find that there is a situation that people bring to everyone's attention. You look into it and find that it is what it is and there's nothing there." So Triple H there is saying that apparently they did look into these allegations made against Velveteen Dream and found nothing. He goes on to say, "Everything that we have done, we are comfortable with him continuing to do what he does. But he had a car accident. People thought we removed him from TV for different reasons. We didn't. It was the car accident. Once he was medically cleared to be able to return to the ring from the car accident, we continued forward the way we did. We looked into what was there and we didn't find anything." Now, to clear up any confusion, they have been kind of two separate instances of allegations made against Velveteen Dream. Back in April, he was accused of inappropriate behavior. There were various different things which you can easily find out there if you Google it, which were basically said that Velveteen Dream did. Obviously, some of it was illegal, some of it was highly inappropriate, the things that he was accused of anyway. And he came out with a statement to deny those allegations. Since then, other allegations surfaced along a similar sort of line in the speaking out movement, and Velveteen Dream has not responded to those ones. He's just maintained a silence regarding that second stint, is that the right word? That second instance of allegations. So there we go. After a lot of people asking time and time again for WWE to say something regarding Velveteen Dream, specifically after his return to television on NXT last week, Triple H has said in this interview that they did investigate and that nothing was found. This, I think, will not quell the conversation online regarding Velveteen Dream, especially because last week one of his accusers came out and said that he had not been contacted by WWE regarding the allegations and was basically felt unable to give their side of the story. So there we go, very serious news to start off this video. Let's move on to something a little bit less severe. And it concerns none other than AEW's Chris Jericho, who has suggested that a title in AEW is apparently meaningless. This was from Jericho's Saturday Night Q&A, where he said, "I don't think we need too many titles. The one thing sometimes that kind of muddles down wrestling companies is too many titles, and I really found this out when Raw and SmackDown split back in the early 2000s. The world champion is the world champion. You can't have two of them." Now, obviously, WWE would disagree, or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd say, well, yeah, one's our world champion, but the other one is the champion of the entire universe. But I do understand Chris Jericho's point. You know, if you split the world title into two separate titles, then it kind of maybe dilutes the overall impact of just having one world champion. So Jericho has said, "I like the fact that in AEW we have the world title and now we have the TNT title and we have the women's title and the tag team titles for the men, and I think that it should stay there. If you want to do women's tag team titles, that's fine, but we do need to expand the division a bit. But other than that, we don't need any more titles." He then addressed the FTW title, which I see as more of a ceremonial title, I suppose, like the $1 Million Championship, which was, which belongs to Brian Cage and was seemingly given to him by Taz. And Jericho says, the FTW title even is too much. It doesn't mean anything. Who cares? That's just me, but maybe some people care. It seems to me like it's not even a real title. You don't want to muddle it down too much. So a lot of interesting talking points there from Chris Jericho. First of all, I think it kind of contradicts what Cody said a few days ago, which was that the TNT title is not a secondary tier title. It's a totally separate thing from the AEW World Championship. Well, then does that kind of fall under Jericho's criteria of having two big belts diluting the impact of each other? I think I'm just kind of being devil's advocate there, because I think that the TNT title does fulfill a different role from the AEW World Championship, and I think that both belts are providing a lot of really good action and storytelling on AEW at the moment. But I do understand what Jericho says about the FTW Championship. Yes, as I suggested before, he also says that it's not even really a real title, it's more of a ceremonial thing. It's not as if it takes place in the rankings or Brian Cage is defending it every week or anything like that. It's more of like a status symbol, I suppose. But Jericho seems to be implying that just by the mere presence of it, it threatens to take away from the other titles and overcrowd the promotion in terms of championship gold. So there is certainly an interesting debate to be had there. There's no talk yet on whether women's titles will be introduced. I don't think the winners of this women's tag title tournament become women's champions, but I think there was a suggestion that it could lead to further things down the line. And I wouldn't be surprised if we did end up with women's tag champions somewhere in the future for AEW. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I agree, like Jericho says, maybe that division needs to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more expanded, but that might be what they're doing now by building up storylines and teams and partnerships through this tournament. We'll talk a little bit more about that women's tag team tournament in a few moments time, but first of all, let's go to New Japan. So remember a little while ago when we reported on the King of Pro Wrestling tournament, which I think in kayfabe and maybe in reality as well, was Kazuchika Okada's idea. Basically something, I guess, to fill the gaps while they've got a limited roster at the moment. And it's basically a tournament where the first few rounds, the two wrestlers in the first round, the two opponents, choose a stipulation each, and then the fans vote on which stipulation to pick, and then that's the stipulation used in the match. And then as things progress, things get a little bit more convoluted. But we'll stick with that for now, those first opening round rules. I'll explain what happens later on in the tournament just at the end of this, but first let's talk about these preliminary matches, which all take place on August 26th. I'm going to go through all 4 matches in turn, talk about the 2 stipulations, and tell you who's involved. So in the first match, it's Satoshi Kojima versus El Desperado. Kojima has chosen a finishers only match, while Desperado has chosen the very opposite, a no finishers match, where either man's finisher will lead to an instant disqualification. Masterful troll work there from El Desperado. Also a bit cheeky from Kojima, given that his finisher is a lariat, and he can just do that and he'll have won the match straight away. I bet he goes for it straight away if that stipulation wins. I bet the start of the match is just Desperado like terrified, just avoiding lariat after lariat. Next up, we have Toru Yano versus Bushi. Yano, the comedic bloke that he is, has chosen a 2-count pinfall match where a 2 count will lead to the win rather than a 3. Bushi has chosen a 5-count ring-out match where wrestlers only have 5 seconds to get back in the ring after they've been knocked out of there. I'm guessing that one will be a bit more of a comedy match, just from the people involved and the stipulation as well. Next up, we get Sho versus Sonada, which could potentially, that's probably my pick for the match of the opening round. Sho has chosen a submissions match, while Sonada has chosen a no pinfalls give up only match. So therefore the match has already been kind of determined to be a submissions match. Although I don't know actually if Sonada's is more of an I quit situation. I'm not quite certain. And the final match of the opening round is Kazuchika Okada, the tournament's originator, taking on Yujiro Takahashi. Okada, because he's so tough and strong, has chosen himself versus 3 opponents in a 1v3 handicap match, whereas Yujiro has chosen a lumberjack match where belts can be used as weapons, because Bullet Club are not short of belts at the moment, and I'm sure they can make use of that. Now, New Japan Pro Wrestling Global, NJPW Global, have put out polls for those 3 matches, the 4th one being Sho versus Sonada, which I guess is going to be a submissions match, but they've put out polls for the other 3 matches with stipulations still to be determined, and you can vote on it now, and the results will be announced next Monday, August 24th. Then the matches themselves take place on August 26th, hopefully giving the wrestlers time to work out what the hell they're doing, and then I'm sure it won't take as long as 2 days, hopefully. And then the winners of each of those matches will all face off in a fatal 4-way match at Summer Struggle in Jingu on August 29th, and the winner of that will become the provisional King of Pro Wrestling champion. But that's not all, because then they'll have to defend that belt until the end of the year, and then whoever is champion by the end of the year is the 2020 King of Pro Wrestling champion. Complicated enough for you? Because it was for me. Next up, Dynamite this week obviously isn't taking place on Wednesday night as per usual because of the NBA playoffs. It's taking place on Saturday night, and already we've got another match added to the show. That's because last night, on the final installment of the August Monday Night Series on YouTube, we saw the semi-finals in the Women's Tag Tournament, and we now know who are going to face each other in the final, which is set to take place on this Saturday's edition of Dynamite. So, the Nightmare Sisters, I predicted against them, I think, but they beat Big Swole and Lil Swole to advance to the final, so Brandy Rhodes and Ali will be in the final of the tournament. That wasn't an entirely clean victory. I believe Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, got involved to turn the tide in the favour of Brandy and Ali, not because she loves them, but because she hates Big Swole. Lil Swole, of course, was Nicole Savoy from the Mae Young Classic, and also a pioneer of the women's wrestling scene in North America over the past decade or so. Anyway, the other semi-final, now that I got all that out in one breath, saw Ivelisse and Diamante defeat Tay Conti, formerly of NXT, and her tag partner, Anna Jay, now of the Dark Order. So the final is going to be Brandy Rhodes and Ali taking on Ivelisse and Diamante. And finally, and this is an intriguing news story, this is a really weird one and sheds a bit of a light on some of the backstage workings of WWE and kind of confirms what some people think. It might even shock some people. It's the reason why Vince McMahon dropped Rusev Day, and it comes straight from Rusev himself. So Rusev, or Miro, as he is now known, of course, was on Ryback's podcast and talked about Rusev Day and said, "I was told, don't look at the people, don't smile, don't do this. Everything I'm doing, it seems like the people are liking it. Why am I getting over and you're telling me to do the opposite? I didn't understand. I had a conversation with Vince and he told me that with Rusev Day, they were just mocking me. They didn't mean it." Which is untrue. And I can say that because I'm a wrestling fan, and I'm almost positive that everybody cheering on Rusev Day were not doing it ironically. They weren't mocking Rusev, They really wanted Rusev to be a big babyface star and win titles and matches and feuds, and everyone was really behind him because he's really likable and awesome. But then anyway, Rusev or Miro goes on to say the first meeting that he had with Vince, it was like, they're effing with you, they don't mean what they're saying. And I respected it and I listened because I always want to listen to Vince. He had everybody on his side, and in my mind, I knew that it wasn't true. They started putting my segments on early so the Rusev Day chants would go away. I went to one of the writers and I was like, this is not right. And this was the first time I yelled at a writer and I felt bad. He goes on to say the writer said, "We don't know what to do." And I said, "What do you mean you don't know what to do? Just listen. They'll tell you what to do," meaning the fans will tell you what to do. He said that they are shoving me down, they now being, I think, Vince in the office. They're shoving me down and I don't understand why. What am I fighting for? I did everything right. I went to acting classes. I started working on my body. I did all the extra stuff. I just was defeated. So first of all, right, Vince said that Rusev wasn't getting over because they were mocking him, even though Rusev clearly was getting over. And this is why Vince refused to push him further, I don't know. But then apparently Vince said the second time that they're effing with Rusev, he said back to him, "Vince, we have sold out all of our merchandise." And Vince said, "What do you mean?" And Rusev said, "The shirt is sold out, the Rusev Day t-shirt." And Vince said, "Well, maybe they didn't make enough." That to me kind of just confirms that if Vince doesn't want to get someone over, they're not getting over. Despite being over, they're not going to officially be pushed by WWE. And it's wrong, isn't it? It's incredibly frustrating, especially for the many fans of Rusev at the time, and there were a lot. Even in this office, there were a lot of Rusev fans. It was a great time, and well, it was a frustrating time as well, because we were just waiting for him to get that push that never came. And it seems to me to kind of confirm this idea that's always been floated around by former WWE wrestlers, saying that if Vince hasn't created it, it's really hard to get it over. Really, really hard to get it over with Vince. The main example always given is Zack Ryder, who organically got himself over and was then buried for it. And now, the next big example seems to be Rusev. So that's it for all of the news for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions on any of these stories in the comments section down below. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.